In the Poppy Playtime universe, there are three main questions that we still haven't received answers to. We've only found the answer to one of them, while the other two remain a mystery, as they could potentially end this entire franchise. Yes, once we get answers to these three major questions, there might be nothing left to see in this universe. These three questions are as follows. Who is Poppy? We got an answer in Chapter 4, and we found out who Poppy really is. The other two questions are, who is Experiment 1006? This is still a big mystery, and the third question is, who is our former employee? This question will set the direction for the entire franchise, and this is where the chapter will end. Yes, just as we learned in Chapter 4 who Poppy really is, today we will be discussing the true identity of Experiment 1006. Watch this video to the end and support the channel. Don't forget to leave a like. Welcome to a new episode where we will once again discuss theories about the Poppy Playtime universe. After playing through the Poppy Playtime chapters, the question has often come up, is the prototype actually Elliot Ludwig? Yes, I've raised this question many times and it makes you wonder. Is that really the case? Or is Experiment 1006 someone else, a more terrifying character? The experiment was initially created after Poppy Playtime, when Elliot Ludwig started his first experiment called Poppy. After that, we heard very little about the other experiments. Yes, we know that Poppy is a doll created by Elliot, and it was the first successful experiment that could actually talk and had other senses, which remains a mystery to this day. After that, many other experiments were created, but none of them turned out like the Poppy doll, except for Experiment 1006. Yes, we can notice here that we've heard from the scientists that Experiment 1006 is the perfect experiment that was ever created, meaning after that there was no toy that was similar to Experiment 1006 or had the same abilities as the prototype. Yes, as we've learned, Experiment 1006 possesses unique abilities, is very intelligent, and represents a highly intellectual being. Its brain works extremely quickly. The distinctive feature of Experiment 1006 is that it can survive without food. It doesn't need to eat to stay alive. Its digestive system works differently from others. As we know, other experiments and creatures need food to survive, but in this case, everything is different. We also hear about this in the journal, where it mentions that there are several other experiments that can live without food, and one of them is Poppy, who has been locked in a room for many years, but still remains alive, can talk, and doesn't chase after food. The same can be said about another experiment, Harley Sawyer, who has no body, so it doesn't need to eat to survive. We can see that there are still no dolls like Poppy, and no experiments like Experiment 1006. This means that, as far as we know, Harley or Sawyer created Poppy Playtime, and after that, Elliot Ludwig died. However, we don't know how long Elliot remained alive after the creation of Poppy. We only know that his death occurred right after Poppy's creation, and so far nothing is known about the time of his death. After that, Light Payers took over the management of the hidden operations of Playtime Co., and we see that it was only then that the work on the project began. This means that Poppy and Experiment 1006 were not actually part of the bigger Boris Institute. I think these experiments were so perfect because a lot of the work was likely done by Elliot Ludwig, or to be more precise, Elliot worked on Poppy, but then he died. However, there is no evidence or traces that could explain his death or disappearance. Therefore, I believe that something happened which caused Elliot to be turned into a living experiment. Or perhaps Light Payers did this to take control of Playtime Co. This might seem a bit dramatic, this scene in theory, but for now we can speculate that Light somehow turned Elliot into Experiment 1006. Yes, as we know, before that there was Experiment 814, on which an experiment was conducted, and it failed. I think after that, Experiment 1006 was assigned the number. If you think about it, when the experiment with Experiment 814 was conducted, 192 experiments were carried out after it, and then came Experiment 1006. So we don't know all 192 experiments, but I believe we can confidently say that Poppy Playtime was created before Experiment 1006. In one of the steps, Poppy specifically mentions that she misses her father. If this is indeed the case, then it raises an interesting question. Why is Experiment 1006 chasing after Poppy? If we take a closer look at Chapter 4, particularly near the end of that chapter, we actually see Experiment 1006 having a conversation with Poppy. This interaction adds another layer of complexity to the situation, as it creates a contradiction between Poppy's expressed emotions and the behavior of Experiment 1006. It's a puzzling scenario that leaves us questioning the motives and relationships between the experiments, their creators, and Poppy herself. He speaks to her in a very gentle and caring manner, almost as though she were his own daughter. His words are filled with a strange mixture of tenderness and a sense of urgency, as he says, "Poppy, come back home." He even adds, "Prototype, please, it's time to go home. Poppy, it's time to go." These words are spoken with deep affection, though there's also an underlying sense of threat that lingers. Despite the ominous tone, he keeps repeating that this is something that only they share, something unique between just him and Poppy. He emphasizes that only the two of them exist in this moment, in this situation, something that no one else can possibly understand or experience. He continues to insist that Poppy must return. From what we understand, a similar scenario occurred with Harley. Harley Sawyer vanished without a trace, and the scientists working on the experiments were unsure of what happened to him. Some believed he was either dead or simply missing. As one scientist put it, "I don't know where he went." However, in Chapter 4, we get a glimpse of what might have happened to him. Someone turned him into an experiment. This suggests that something similar could have happened to Elliot, as they were aware of his sharp intellect. The scientists who worked on the various experiments at Playtime Co. had likely explored all possible avenues for testing and transforming individuals, and given Elliot's mind, they may have chosen to make him a part of their experiments, using his sharp mind for their own purposes. They worked on the experiment and tried to achieve what they couldn't before with Poppy. Maybe they needed Elliot's mind, and they found a solution. As for Elliot, he deeply hated Harley Sawyer and didn't consider him a good person. He even excluded him from his young genius program. So how does he help him in Chapter 4? How does he get his help? The answer to this is there, and he says he can be loyal and help if needed. The one who wants to achieve something can't do it alone. But if Sawyer helps, it will be much easier. Of course, it will take time, but everything is possible. And because of Experiment 166, he agrees to listen to Elliot, because until Elliot finishes his work with Dr. Sawyer, he won't kill him. But once the work is done, he will quickly kill him. He still beats him, but for now, he's helping him. This shows that he's not all bad. In my opinion, after all these details and theories, I have the impression that Experiment 166 is someone we already know. It could be Elliot Ludwig. We know that Harley Sawyer is not the person we're looking for, but Elliot Ludwig is the one who disappeared after the creation of Poppy, and no one knew what happened to him. Either he died, or he was simply removed. In any case, it remains a mystery. Perhaps in Chapter 5 we'll find out that Experiment 1006 is actually Elliot Ludwig. If so, it would be a great climax for Chapter 5. In Chapter 4, we took a significant step forward in understanding who Poppy truly is. While much remains unclear about her background, we got an important clue that gives us insight into her true nature. We may not have the complete picture yet, but we certainly made progress in unraveling her identity. As for Experiment 1006, it's highly likely that in Chapter 5, we will finally learn who or what it really is. Up until now, we've only been left with hints and speculations, but the next chapter might provide the answers we've been waiting for. As for the former employee, it's possible that Chapter 6 will offer us a deep dive into their true identity. This employee, whose backstory we've only begun to glimpse, could hold the key to understanding many of the mysteries at Playtime Co. Alternatively, it's also possible that all of these secrets could come to light in Chapter 5, in a single, explosive revelation that leaves us stunned. The way the narrative is building up, it's clear that the secrets surrounding Poppy, Experiment 1006, and the former employee are all tied together in a way that will ultimately be revealed in a shocking, climactic moment. Don't forget, if you like this video, subscribe to the channel. We will be posting many more videos about Poppy Playtime and other games.